President, are you going to pardon Michael Flynn?
I can't hear you.
Are you going to pardon Michael Flynn?
Well, he's got a case going on right now. I think he would, I don't know this for a fact, but I think he's doing very well with respect to his case. I hope that he's going to be able to win it. And I don't have a decision to make until I find out what's going to happen. But I think he was persecuted. He didn't lie. Turned out he didn't lie. The FBI said he didn't lie. I think he was persecuted, and nobody understands what's going on with the judge, the Justice Department, which is so capable. They decided to take a view on it, and they decided that he should be. They were going to drop the case. So he's right now, meaning his lawyers and him, are embroiled in hopefully the final stages of what should have never happened. They treated him very unfairly, as they have many people on this side. Yeah, please.
President Trump, you've said many times that the number of coronavirus cases is going up because testing is increasing.
That's right.
Do you acknowledge that it's going up for other reasons too? For example, that it's actually spreading? And what are you going to do to stop the spread?
Well, you know that we have one of the lowest mortality rates anywhere. If you know, Biden and Obama stopped their testing. They just stopped it. You probably know that. I'm sure you don't want to report it. But they stopped testing. Right in the middle, they just went, no more testing. And on a much lesser problem than the problem that we have, obviously, with respect to this is the worst thing that's happened since probably 1917. This is a very bad thing. All over the world, it's 188 countries right now. But no, we test more than anybody by far. And when you test, you create cases. So we've created cases. I can tell you some countries, they test when somebody walks into a hospital sick or walks into maybe a doctor's office, but usually a hospital. That's the testing they do, so they don't have cases, whereas we do. We have all of these cases, so, you know, it's a double-edged sword. At the same time, we have the lowest mortality, or just about the lowest mortality in the world. We're doing a great job. We're doing very well with vaccines, and we're doing very, very well with therapeutics. And I think we're going to have some very good information coming out soon. But we have the best and certainly the biggest, by far the biggest testing program anywhere in the world. If you tested China or Russia or any of the larger countries, if you just tested India as an example, the way we test, you'd see numbers that would be very surprising. Brazil, too. You know, Brazil's going through a big problem, but they don't do testing like we do. So we do the testing, and by doing the testing, we have tremendous numbers of cases. If we didn't do the, as an example, we've done 45 million tests. If we did half that number, you'd have half the cases, probably around that number. If we did another half of that, you'd have half the numbers. Everyone would be saying, oh, we're doing so well on cases. But when I see it reported in the night, you can check me out on this. I mean, they're always talking about cases, the number of cases. Well, it is a big factor that we do. We have a lot of cases because we have a lot of testing, far more than any other country in the world. And it's also the best testing. Yeah, please.
The federal government is set to resume federal executions for the first time in more than a decade, potentially as soon as a couple of hours from now. Are you monitoring the last-minute appeals on that case?
Well, I think what I'm going to do is allow that to be answered by our Attorney General. Do you mind, Bill?
Yes, sir. We obviously monitor the appellate process.
And Mr. President, have you given any consideration to using your clemency powers to stop these executions and commute them to life sentences?
Well, I've looked at it very strongly, and in this particular case, I'm dealing with Bill and all of the people at Justice, and it's always tough. You're talking about the death penalty, but when you talk about people that did what this particular person did, that's tough also. So we're going to see what happens. Right now, they have a stay, I believe, right? They have a stay, and we'll let the courts determine the final outcome, and that's what's going to happen, okay?
You're asking Americans to have full faith in law enforcement. How do you respond to critics who say you undermined your own federal law enforcement agency, the DOJ, when you commuted the sentence of Roger Stone?
Well, if you look back on it, this was an investigation that should have never taken place. You have guys like Comey, you have McCabe, you have Strzok, you have his lover Lisa Page, you have all of these people running around, you have Brennan and Clapper who lied to Congress, You have many, many people. You have people that change documents going into the FISA courts, and it's a terrible thing. And this is an investigation that they said should have ended before it started. It shouldn't have started, and if it did, it should have ended immediately, because they found, as you know as well as I do, they found nothing initially, but it went on for 2 years or longer. And no, I'm getting rave reviews for what I did for Roger Stone, and he frankly is going to go and now appeal his case. He had a jury forewoman who hated Roger Stone and who hated probably me, but she went on a false pretense, and he wasn't given a fair trial. It's not a fair trial. He wasn't given another trial. Should have been given another trial. I won't say more. I won't talk about the judge. I'm not going to. Why would I ever talk about a judge? But this was a judge that gave, I believe, solitary confinement to Paul Manafort. Al Capone didn't have solitary confinement. So these are things that happened. And if you look at President Bush, President Clinton, President Obama, take a look at what they did. Frankly, it's a very unfair. Roger Stone was treated very unfairly, in my opinion, and so were many others on this side. In the meantime, you have the other ones who are admitted lying before. They admitted they lied before Congress. They leaked classified information, which is something you just can't do. And what are they doing? So we'll see what happens. But no, we're getting rave reviews for what I did. Okay.
Are you going to be able to hold the convention in Jacksonville with all this virus spreading?
Well, we're going to see it built up a little bit, but we're going to do something that will be great. We think we're doing very well. We had some poll numbers a little while ago that are great. You know, it's the same story. It's suppression polls that we had in 2016, phony polls. Fake news, phony polls, same thing. And we're doing very well. We're doing well in Georgia. We're doing well in Texas. I've read where I was 1 point up in Texas. I'm not 1 point up in Texas. We're many points up. I saved the oil industry. 2 months ago, I saved the oil industry. I created it. We became #1. We have millions of jobs, and we saved it, so Texas is not going to have to let go of millions and millions of people. Oklahoma, North Dakota, many states. We're at $40 a barrel, and yet you can buy gasoline for under $2. Nobody's ever seen like that. So we have the biggest energy in the world. We're #1 in oil, as you know, oil and gas by far. We're now #1 in the world. And we would have had millions of people out of work. I saved it. And then they say I'm leading by 1 point in Texas. They said it last time, too. They said Texas is too close to call. This was like 3 months before the election. And then I won Texas in a blowout. They called it the minute the polls closed. They said that about Utah. They said that about Georgia. They said the same thing. That Georgia's, we can't, it's too close. They'll never be able to determine. We'll have to wait till election night. On election night, 2 seconds after the poll closed, they called Georgia. So, you know, it's the same thing. We have the same thing. They're phony polls. They're suppression polls. But to think that after saving the oil and gas business and millions of jobs, I'm leading Texas by 1 point, I don't think so. Go ahead.
Is the China phase 1 deal still intact, or is it? Do you see it in jeopardy?
It's intact. It's intact. But I think what China has done to the world with what took place, the China plague, you can call it the China virus, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's about 20 different names. What they did to the world should not be forgotten. But it's intact. They're buying. Whether they buy or not, that's up to them. They're buying.
Yes, Mr. President, Los Angeles just announced that they are delaying the opening of their schools. New York already said they were going to delay them. Other school districts are giving parents the choice whether to send their kids to school or not. What do you tell parents who look at this, who look at Arizona, where a school teacher recently died teaching summer school, parents who are worried about the safety of their children in public
Yeah,
schools?
the schools should be opened. Schools should be opened. If these kids want to go to school, you're losing a lot of lives by keeping things closed. We did the right thing. We saved millions of lives. We saved millions of lives when we did the initial closure. Had we not done what we did, we would have had Mike and I were talking about it before, 2 to 3 million lives lost. But we did that. So we're at about 135,000, and we'll be at somewhat higher than that by the time it ends. And again, the vaccines are happening and the therapeutics are happening, but I'm not even talking about that. So we'll be at a somewhat higher, but we would have lost 2 million, 3 million lives had we not done it. Now we understand it also. We understand there are certain vulnerabilities. Young children, I was talking to Governor Murphy, and they have thousands of lives. I won't even say how many, just thousands of lives, hard to believe, in New Jersey. And he said there was only one life that was 18 or younger. One person died, and that was a young man that had some medical difficulty. So when you think of that with thousands of lives, and you have one person that was under 18, that's something that tells you, for some reason, I guess the immune system is much stronger with young people than it is for others. So we have to watch the group that does have the difficulty, does have the problem. We all know what that is. We all know who they are, especially if they have a medical problem. If they have a medical problem, diabetes or heart or anything, it's a big problem. But we're being very careful. But we have to open the schools. Would you agree with that? Do you agree? Yeah. We have to open the schools. We have to get them open. And I think there's a lot of politics going along. I think they think they'll do better if they can keep the schools closed in the election. I don't think it's going to help them, frankly, but I think they feel that by keeping schools closed, that's a bad thing for the country, and therefore that's a good thing for them. But they're the ones whose city's burning. I mean, can you imagine if the country was run like Chicago and like New York and like some of these other Democrat super radical left cities are run? You wouldn't have a country for very long, and the economy would crash. So we just set a brand new record today on NASDAQ again. This is now, I think, the 18th time since, and this is since after the problem. So we have a new stock market high for NASDAQ, and the other ones are getting very close. When I came here, the stock market was up almost 500 points today. The economy is rebuilding. Jobs are being produced at a record pace. We've never had a pace like this. And I will tell you, if Biden got in, this economy would be destroyed. You know, he was in office for 48 years, and what he did was not great. Almost every decision was a wrong decision, and now he's going to come in and try and help us. We didn't need any help. We built the greatest economy in history, greatest economy we've ever had, the greatest economy the world has ever seen. And then the plague came in from China, and we did the right thing. We had to close it down. Now we're opening it up. He can't do it. He doesn't have the capability to do it. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good luck with everything. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, good afternoon. Thank you so much for watching News Now. Pilar Arias here on Mission